Okay, here we go. First thing I'm gonna do, I got this bolted up where it goes in the car. I'm gonna cut this cowl part off and determine where my roof is gonna be. That way I can figure out how far down I gotta modify this to make this all work. But this is a moment in a job like this. Once I make my first cut, I'm committed. And there's no going back after that. Just got to do whatever it takes to make this work. Kind of interesting thing, after sleeping on this last night, I had the idea I might build this whole box out of fiberglass. Kind of up the cool factor one notch, and it'll look more factory than kind of having a sheet metal race car box look to it. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to get to cutting this thing. Once I make my first cut, like I said, I'm committed, and we're just gonna do whatever it takes to make it work. Stick around. Okay, this is a point in a job like this that I really like, because I've made my first cut and now I'm committed. It's no longer if it'll work or am I gonna do this? Now my brain just transitions into what's the next step to making this all happen. And if you notice, I didn't cut this all the way back yet because I'm kind of just letting the car talk to me and tell me what it wants. Now, I'm not committed steel or fiberglass yet, so I'm just kind of starting the mock-up phase of it. And I cut that piece off there. And I cut this piece off the bottom here, right here, trying to establish my roof. I may have to go farther, not sure yet. I'm just kind of checking it all out and seeing what's gonna work, what's not. But at this point, it's just a matter of what the next step is and make this all happen. So just gonna keep on getting it, take it one step at a time. Okay, at this point, we got the bottom cut out, and got this piece used to be in here, just like that. And basically have to move it down to about right there. I'm not sure if I'm gonna try to graft this in or just make a whole new piece. I think I'm gonna make a whole new piece because this might get kind of janky if I don't. So we'll see about that. Just get it low enough, pretty much establish my ceiling here. I think that's plenty high enough for what I'm looking for. So we got our ceiling, then we just got to come down 10.5 inches and have it be able to clear down here and whatever I do down here. So that's what we're looking at. Keep on getting it. Okay, I think instead of trying to graft this in here, basically at that point, we're gonna go ahead and make this whole bottom piece. So first step is I made this cardboard template here to go right in there. Come down nice and easy, no big deal. Got the template there, and that's basically to mimic this framing piece behind the sheet metal. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. We're gonna use this, this is part of a piece off of a forklift. We had a forklift literally go over the loading dock last week, and it landed on its back. And if you ever tried to upright a 10,000 pound forklift, you know that shit's no joke. But we're going to go ahead and cut the framing part out of this forklift piece. We were able to salvage this piece out of it and make the structure of it really strong with this piece because it's actually thicker than a factory. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this out with the plasma cutter, and then we're just gonna lay sheet metal over top of it. So that should be pretty cool. All right, mocking this thing up here. We got our clearance from the roof to the floor. But one thing I love a good plasma cutter. This thing literally cut this thing in about, I don't know, 48 seconds. So that was pretty cool. But we're just moving along here, making this frame. So that should work out. Then we just wrap it with sheet metal and then start the heater box. Okay, we got our bottom floor established here. It's all mocked up. Gonna be interesting with the sheet metal, but go ahead and weld this in, and I'm actually gonna weld it to the bracing in the back. And then we just gotta wrap this thing in sheet metal. That should work out. Okay, we got our brace piece in here, welded in pretty good, but one thing I'd like to show, I'm still getting used to my new welder. This weld here, it's definitely welded, but got a little dog knot going on because the wire speed was up a little too high. But turn the wire speed down a little bit, and that thing's right and tight. Okay, moving along here. This has certainly been one interesting piece of metal so far. We got our bends going on, got it coming down, over. Still got to do this whole side. But one thing I'm doing, I'm trying to conform this piece of metal to the body, which is turning out pretty interesting, but it's coming along. We should be able to weld this thing in all the way down this seam here, all the way across and up, and make it half factory. I could have just box squared this thing all off, but where's the fun in that? Let's just make it as right and tight as we can. Just got to keep on getting it. Got this side done, more or less. I can work the body and get that welded up good. Let's do this side. One thing I'm doing here, leaving this whole top section in to try to keep this nice and flat. I'm not cutting any of this out yet until I get everything bent up, because once getting into all this bending and stuff, it'll mess up the whole flat plane of what I'm trying to accomplish here. So just leaving this all there until I get the whole left side bent up there, and then we're gonna cut this out, make this all happy. One thing about this, it's taking it one piece at a time, but now that I established this left side, or the passenger side, I should say, all I gotta do is punch that in there, and I know that's right and tight, and this thing just falls into place. So now I'm just working this side, one piece of metal at a time. Just working it through, trying to work with the body that's there. Just keep on cutting and bending. That's all I'm doing. And still working it. Just about got it. All right, we're looking pretty good here. Got this thing ready as far as the body goes. I'd say that's pretty form fitting. No worries there. You know, there's an old saying, doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be right. And so far, this thing's looking right. We're good on the outside. Just gotta cut our whole hole out here, bend the metal over, and the body is good to go. Then we'll move on to the heater box. Again, I'll say I love a good plasma cutter. Basically, just cut this line all the way through, but all I did was take a flat piece of steel and use it as a guide so I could just make a nice straight line all the way through. So that worked out, and then I'll just freehand the rest of this. But it just makes things a lot simpler and cleaner. Good shit. Okay, one step closer. It's coming together. Got our piece cut out here. I'm actually just kind of hammer rolling this over because there was no way I was getting it in the bender. This 16 gauge sheet metal is no joke to work with. Hindsight, I probably would have used 18 or 20, which is basically 20, I believe, is what the car is. But it's working out. It's looking pretty good. Just got to keep moving on. Got those two done, and just got to do those two. Okay, we're just about ready here. Got this thing right and tight. Everything's fitting good. Ready to weld in. Very happy with this so far. No big deal there. Everything's good. But one thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take these body nuts I took off the original one and I'm gonna weld them to the back bracing, just like the original was. That one there, that one there. And I got 3, I think I need 4, so we may have to get another one. But we're gonna go ahead and add that and then just weld this piece in. Then the body's ready to go. But one thing, pretty much use that grinding wheel for everything she had. Change that out and keep on getting it. Okay, we got our body nuts welded in, just like the factory was. So that should work out pretty good. And then I'm gonna, so this should work out everything. I'm gonna use all the factory bolts all the way through. And then I put a couple holes here, one there, one there, one up here to, once I get the sheet metal welded in, I'm gonna weld this bracing piece to the sheet metal from the back through this hole, just a spot weld, just like factory right here. So we're gonna do that. Let's just get to welding this thing. Okay, moment of truth here. I went ahead and primed and painted that brace piece and the back of it, except for where my spot welds go, just to give it a little rust protection. And once I weld it all in, I can paint everything, but just to give it a little extra protection, I guess. But we're gonna go ahead and weld this thing in. I'm gonna use the MIG welder. I'm not quite comfortable enough yet with the TIG. This will be a good situation for a TIG welder, but they say you gotta be really comfortable TIG welding, and I haven't quite got comfortable yet in all these different angles. So we'll just have to do a little grinding once it's welded in, but next step, weld it in. Okay, we are all welded in here. This thing turned out to be a formidable opponent, but we got it done. Figured went ahead and ground this down. I figured I'd spare you some of the agony of looking at some of the dog nuts that happened, but everything worked out. She's right and tight. Had some blow through in here and got the whole bottom welded up. Everything's good around there. We got our spot welds in the back for the framing pieces. One there and one there. All's right and tight with that. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll just put a nice light coat of seam sealer through all this to clean it up a bit. And that'll be ready for paint. And then in the back, we got, I still need to get a nut for that hole there. I gotta find a nut with the right threads, but we got the rest of the nuts all welded in. So that'll be all good. Got our spot welds in there. Got this kind of hammer rolled down and painted in the back. So just trying to keep it as much rust prevention as possible. And then gonna go ahead and do a seam seal this whole seam here again, plus that that lip there. So all should be right with that. Body's just about done. Time to move on to the heater box. All right, basically the finished product here. The body is modified. We got this good to go. Got it all primed up. Happy, as if this hole wasn't big enough, but it was all necessary to make this vintage air work. We dropped it down about 3 inches all the way across. Everything's happy with that. Just keep moving on. All right, at this point, we have our roof established. We have our floor established. We got 10.5 inches from the roof to the floor. All's right and tight there. I'm still not convinced which way to go as far as making this all out of steel, making it all out of fiberglass. This is the original heater hose going into the car, and may make a bulkhead to hook up the heater hoses there. And then the AC lines over here somewhere. Not sure yet. Still figuring it out. I'm going to sleep on it tonight and go from there. But having a bulkhead really makes it nice instead of just having holes in the firewall and then you got your rubber grommets around that. And you have a little bit of airflow or whatever going on in there. Bulkheads are really nice. All the other units that I've ever done have had bulkheads and they look much more proper than just hoses going through the firewall. So determining steel or fiberglass, tell me what you think we should do at this point. It's looking good. All is right and tight. Thank you guys for watching. Next step, build a heater box. Body is happy.